Hi, this is Bob Scully, and welcome to another edition of The World Show, Entrepreneurs, the Dobson Series. John Dobson used to phone us on Monday mornings when he particularly enjoyed an interview with an entrepreneur, and I know he would have phoned after this one if he were still with us. You're going to meet somebody who seems to have found the secret of professional longevity. He's been 3 decades with the same company, and yet he's still a young man with many good years ahead of him. Within an organization that has certainly found the secret of corporate longevity, they've been in business for over a century. They're now in 40 countries, and our guest, Marc Charlebois, directs their operations in Canada. The company is called Mersen. They're established on every continent, and Marc Charlebois himself, for instance, through his work, has visited 39 of the 50 U.S. states, a number of countries in South America, Asia, Europe, you name it. And he is brilliant on those topics. One day I had a conversation with him, and he was able to describe the difference on the shop floor and in the administrative reaches of the Chinese, the Indians, the Brazilians, the Americans, how they work differently. He's curious about everything, whether it's 3D printers or wind turbines. He's fun to listen to, and John Dobson would have appreciated his enthusiasm. Here is Marc Charlebois. Marc Charlebois, I'm going to start off with just one statistic. It's not central, but it's interesting. You worked in 39 out of 50 U.S. states, and that's just the U.S. You've also worked in dozens of countries at one point or another, and always for the same company, which is itself more than a century old. So we're into big numbers. What does Mersen do?
Mersen is actually a French company, and we started by selling graphite and carbon out of the mining operation in La Lorraine, France. Goes back, of course, in 1800. Now we are in the product, graphite and carbon all over the world. It's used in different applications. The most well-known ones are graphite for carbon brushes for electrical motors. Mm-hmm. That's what we do all over the world. And we also use graphite in anti-corrosion equipment and others. So that was the start of the company. Now it's huge. The products that are going with it are in a very wide range. And we acquired people all over the years. In Canada, it started in 1964 by opening a small workshop in Montreal making carbon brushes for the Canadian market. Mm-hmm. And now we have 2 factories, one in Montreal, one in Toronto. We are the market leader in Canada, obviously. Been at it for many, many years. Acquisition took place, a lot of the acquisition took place in the 90s, making a larger portfolio, being involved in more markets, always trying to be number 1 or number 2 in the markets we deal with. And it works out pretty good, in fact. We are number 1 and number 2 in most of the product we have in the world.
That's the Jack Welch formula. The minute you're number 3, sell the division.
I guess and it did happen over the years. It did, yeah.
And that province in France, Lorraine, people recognize that from Alsace-Lorraine.
That's correct.
So obviously very contested politically over the centuries. But that was like the West Virginia of France. That's where all coal came from.
That's correct.
And what interested me in the research is now the resource no longer matters. Everything is synthetic.
That's correct.
And yet you did not go out of business. You could have.
Could, but I guess the acquisition and the know-how, we have a very wide range of R&D product that were developed over the years. We do push a lot of the innovation, like even we're a century old, we have innovation in our blood. We do that. We have innovation days, and we have like challenges all over the world among manufacturing plant to come up with innovation plans and so on. So I think we survive all of that because we never stopped with what we had. We always went forward.
And the culture must be strong. You're in 40 countries. I mentioned 39 out of 50 U.S. states, but in 40 countries you do the same. You're quite present, and to end up number 1 or number 2.
That's correct.
Do you guys meet at a convention in Vegas once a year? How does the culture get
we have an
cemented?
amazing way of structuring that. I have friends, I said that before, I have friends and Mersen buddies all over the world. The guy in Australia is a friend of mine. We have a very tight culture in terms of management, and everywhere. I have buddies everywhere. Of course, I was saying earlier that when they come to me, when they come to Canada, we also deal on a business standpoint, obviously, but also on a personal basis. So we meet, a couple times a year. We have a meeting coming this March. We're going to meet in New York. 80, 90 people will be all together. Mm-hmm. North and South America, people from Europe as well. We have international days in Paris that we take once or twice a year. We do meet quite a bit, and we do exchange a lot. We try to do it formally. Of course, you have to. Communication formally is very important. But there's a lot of informal communication that just amaze me. We exchange emails like daily.
Constantly, yeah. And it is a big family. I mean, just by
it
the
is.
numbers.
It is. Sometimes when you say this, it's kind of looked at as like, it's not really true. Well, I like to think that in this case it is true.
And is the barrier to entry high? Because another thing that could have happened when you move away from a natural resource that's no longer essential, you also get imitators who jump in. Is there a barrier to entry?
It did happen. Now it's pretty, there's less and less competition. And the main reason is that most of our products are difficult to make and very industrial-wise, it's very difficult. So we have only, in our case, we have only 3 factories or 4 factories in the world making the base product for the whole world. So this is a barrier that not everybody can jump in. Of course, Asia jumped in 20 years ago or something. But besides that, there's not that many new players because of the barrier, that famous barrier.
And does it make the sales force relaxed? Is it an easy job? if you have that dominant position, you might worry about the other guy, but there's only one other guy to worry about. Life is sweet, or not?
Not really. We like to think that boots on the ground is our safe way to continue in business. So we do invest a lot in boots on the ground. People visiting customers, understanding applications, putting their minds to solutions. We do that a lot. I spend my career doing that. I still do it today, 30 years after. This is what we're good at, understanding the needs of our clients and making, like, we always hear being partners and partnership and so on. In our case, it is really true. It is really true. We really try to be with them where the product needs to be used. And
I notice in your research, even though transportation, I think, and energy are your main focuses, you come up with other things for the pharmaceutical industry, for wind turbines, the monitoring of wind turbines. You are constantly looking for new things to do. Yeah, new opportunities that will be related to stuff that we already do today, but that we can enhance. We like to give solutions, not really product and components. So in the wind turbine, it's probably the best example where we took advantage of our knowledge with the original manufacturers in Europe. We took that, we put that in our back pocket, and then we went out and looked and watched and climbed towers. And we've been to, myself and a lot of our guys, climbing on a weekly basis wind towers even today. Wow. Because it's still kind of a new business. I mean, it's been around for 10, 20 years in the US and Canada, but still it's kind of a new industry, and we're still learning today. But with all of that, we were able to get market attention, OEMs attention, and so on. And sometimes right now, when we come up with product, the OEMs come back to us and want to know what about it. How the guys who make the turbine. Yeah, they don't. We have knowledge that they don't have, because we went in the field, we climbed towers, and we understood. So we still do that today on a daily basis, but not only in wind, but wind is probably the best example. And you call it, I think you call it wind trackers. Wind trackers. Yeah, we have the sun catcher, because we do also a lot of stuff in the voltaic business. So we have the sun catchers, we have the wind trackers. Yeah, those guys are engineers, technicians. They travel around, they see the application, they come back with reports and concerns and issues, and everybody works on it. And it works pretty good. And it's rare to see, this is another similarity with General Electric, actually. You've moved, in that case, from hardware to a pure service. You are monitoring what Siemens and these other guys do, not trying to compete with them and build a better tower, but tell all of them how their towers are doing. Yep. Did this come out of a brainstorm? I mean, this product did not exist before you invented it. Well, basically, what we said before, service will probably be, has advantages to us also to influence our design and R&D. And we do put a lot of effort in design and R&D. So by having all that knowledge, we can apply it to ourselves and our product. But on the same token, we find a way to sell that expertise to our client. And in the case of the wind tower, I can't resist asking, what's it like up there? How do you climb up a wind tower? They're awfully tall. Yeah, it's 85 meters, 90 meters tall. You put a ladder on it, or what? No, there's a ladder inside. There's 3 or 4 steps inside, like balconies, if you can call them. You climb up, 20 minutes, half an hour.
You have to be in good shape. It's moving up there, and it's cold in the winter, and it's really warm in the summer.
Is it scary in any way?
Scary because of the movement. Yeah, when you're at the top, it does move. You're not up there. The blades are not turning when you're up there, so it's okay. There's no movement per se in the machine, but it's still moving. I mean, wind towers are in windy area by definition,
obviously,
so it's not easy to be up there. Just taking a picture with a digital camera is a challenge. So it's a very interesting thing to do. I mean, compared to yourself to any other industrial application, you always see it when it works. A wind tower, you never see when it works. You're never up there when it's turning. Any paper mill, steel mill, or whatever, you see it going. In a wind tower, you're never there when it works.
Well, you see it from the ground.
You see it from the ground, but you never see the machine itself. So it's a very unique. There was a lot of challenges for us. And now wind towers are, inland, it's relatively easy to go to. But you can imagine the one in the ocean, like going
around Denmark and so on.
Denmark, and it's starting now here on the East Coast and some of the West Coast. I mean, this is a challenge to go up there and just do an inspection of our product. It takes an helicopters and 3 guys and a week training, and it's a very unique application. And
even though you're monitoring the performance of it physically, what's your take on that whole industry economically? Because there are places, Holland and Denmark have it offshore, a great source of wind, but I'm told that doesn't make money. It's basically subsidized. The Coachella Valley in California, everywhere where you see a lot of them, even there, it hasn't taken off. Do you think it will take off?
I think it will, but it has to be put in perspective of the other sources that are available, geographically speaking. In Canada, I mean, we don't, Quebec for sure, the cost of it is not where it should be compared to hydro, of course. But some other country where they use purely coal and other means, it's a matter of producing it at relatively good price, but as well as going away from burning coal and oil and stuff like that, right? So I think it will take off worldwide for sure. The growth right now is between 7 and 8% a year in terms of power installed. It used to be 15. Now it's in the range of 7 and 8, and I don't think it's going to slow down. The next 20 years, that growth will still be there.
And some of the criticism it receives, of course, noise and so on, or unsightliness, they don't apply to another area that you are involved in, which is the sun energy, voltaic.
Yeah.
That seems to me to have a better future because there aren't any adversaries. It's only a question of cost.
It's a question of cost right now, and there's countries who's actually, like Germany, for instance, now that every time you build an industrial or a commercial building, you have to have solar power on the roof. It's by law. So the cost is going down because there's so much now, and so it will come back. I think you're right. I think at one point solar will take over. However, there's some challenges too. I mean, wherever there's a lot of sun, like deserts and so on, there's dust. You have to clean those. So it's not that straightforward neither.
And do you come under price pressure with your products? Because when you were in that dominant position, the competition is not so much a problem, but the customer might be, because he says, these guys are rich and they're charging me an arm and a leg and I have no say in the matter. I want to bring the price down. Do you get that kind of pressure?
Yeah, we do. And this is why we have to, we offer more than just the product. This is why the support and the knowledge and being with our client everywhere in the world has a price, of course, but it's also for them kind of a safety. Like, we're always there with our product. So yes, we're not the cheapest and we're not known for being, but we are defending our position adamantly to keep our service the way it is, to keep the quality of the product the way it is, and there's a lot of investment to do that.
And for a big client, a General Motors or a Siemens or whatever, will you do loss leaders? I mean, the usual techniques when there's price pressure, sometimes is to swallow the profit, swallow the loss to keep that client happy. Does that happen?
We try not to, but it does happen. But we try not to, because we are, and I have some salesmen that come to me and they want to do those samples and they want to test our product and so on. And after so many years, no, our product works. We know that. Okay, so tell him to give me a PO, and he's paying in 6 months, but he will pay.
Yeah.
So you get a commitment, right? So they're committed that if my product works the way I think it will, you pay me. If it doesn't, I'll take it away. But you have a commitment, I have a commitment too.
So you won't you won't do freebies then?
No, I hardly do. Oh no, I don't get involved with that.
And
as much as I can.
And I would gather that that applies to all of Mersen.
Yeah, yeah.
And a very interesting fact that I read in the research is that you are what people sometimes throw off as a kind of a joke. They say, "Oh, he's a lifer," but lifers are actually privileged people. You started many years ago your career and never left.
That's correct.
And most people are envious of that. They remember from their fathers and grandfathers when that was the rule with companies. And Germany and Japan still have a higher tradition of it. But was this your doing, or is it a company that offers that?
I think it's probably a mix of that. My dad told me the same thing, by the way. He told me you're never going to stay there for 30 years, but it did happen. I think there's a mix of two things in here. Yes, I'm with the same company for 30 years, but I've not been doing the same job for 30 years. I was customer service when I started, and now I'm the GM of Canada. So I did what I had to do. I went to school. I did degrees in drafting and computers and so on. I was a geek for a certain period of time and so on. So I think since I changed job in the same company, there was the challenges and the interest was still there, even if I was with the same. And bosses change and the culture changed, management changed. So I was with the same company, but it changed a lot. That's one thing. But of course, culture-wise, our company is like that. They don't look at people that's been there for 5 or 10 years that are like, let's go to the next one. It's not like that.
You're not expendable.
No. So I think it's a mix of both.
And I also wonder if sometimes it depends on the person, because some companies, even much younger, the Silicon Valley companies with their fancy campuses,
yep.
They're trying to do that. They're not saying it like that, but they are trying to have...
They do a lot of effort.
Yeah, they're trying to have lifelong employment, just like in Japan and Germany and so on, or Detroit in the old days. In other words, it requires people who want to do that.
Yeah, but you have to have the frame of mind to do that. I was born and raised in the town where the plant is. My grandpa was the mayor. I've always lived there. So for me to find a job like the one I have in my hometown, it was very unique. So it was probably helping to the fact that I wanted to stay there and make this a successful company. My dad ran a factory 2 miles away from the one I'm running right now for 35 years himself. So I think I had a role model as well to tell me that if you put the effort and if you keep the interest the way it should be passionate, even after all those years, I'm still passionate by the business, then you're probably good to go. But I think it's not everybody that's like that.
And are you facing some downsizing like almost every other? The digital revolution is supposed to provide in other ways, as has happened in history before. Whenever there's a productivity gain, there's supposed to be new jobs, but they're always long in coming, and it's very painful while they're coming, because we can see the disappearance of jobs right away. Downsizing, of course, kills a lot of loyalty from employees, even when it doesn't happen to them. Just the fact that it happens. Are you undergoing that?
Not really. We try to. I manage the plants the way that I'm trying to avoid doing subcontracting and so on, keeping everything in-house. So we learn more techniques and we apply more knowledge and more manufacturing processes to the product we do by not getting it from outside. Also, acquisition help us to consolidate what we're good at doing. We get new product. I'm selling right now aluminum castings to Sao Paulo through Bombardier. So this is side product for me, if you wish, but I was already in the aluminum business somehow and machining parts and so on for Bombardier. So they asked me, do you want to do castings for us? So I will always fill the gap with something to keep the people, to keep the employment where it is and actually grow their talent and make sure that they can follow us. We're now in the 3D printing. I want to go through 3D printing right now. Some of our product could be done through 3D printing. And I will make it happen. So I have a small one right now in my office that I'm playing with. But a year down the road, I'll get the real McCoy. I'll be in that business for sure.
What have you made with it? I'm curious. Because they say you can make, you can't make a live chicken, but you can make almost anything else.
You can make almost anything. But I was trying to make it for our product. And we came up with a new product 4 or 5 years ago. Our material, when it wears, it creates dust. So we created dust collectors. And now with that 3D printer, I'm able to do dust collecting nozzles that are funky shapes that could be done easily with a 3D printer.
And so, but that, you see, is also seen as a job killer, the 3D printer.
Yeah, but I don't believe that. More I'm playing with it, because right now it's kind of playing with it. More I'm playing with it, more I see applications and stuff that I can do with it, that will not cancel or I will do no layoff. I will probably sell more and probably add value to the product I'm selling, which is very different.
And before the interview that we were talking, you did, of course, you're not immune to recessions and things like that. No one is. There was a period, though, when you did have to let people go.
In the 90s, it was kind of difficult, yeah.
How did you, given your philosophy, it must have been particularly painful. Did you do it individual by individual in a closed office, or did you do a big meeting?
Yeah.
How was that done?
I did it with a small groups at the time, and we kind of did it. There was a lot of I had a lot of pressure to do it. Like, you know, you're looking at P&Ls and you know, profit is your report card as a boss, right? So I had no choice but to do it. But I tried to do it in such a way that a couple of years later, 4 or 5 years later, I was back where I was. Oh. So it's a matter of time where you have new product and new aspect to your job and different way of doing things and applying different techniques that everybody were back almost, right? Or different jobs. It was different skill sets, but the amount of people was the same. And I'm trying to do that all the time. Of course, you don't always succeed, but that's the goal.
And something else that struck me by not being in the research is, in the case of North American corporations that are public, it's a relentless attack from analysts, and there's conference calls every quarter, and if you're widely held, you can get the occasional shark that picks up a piece for green mail or other purposes, or an activist investor. European companies of a certain age are kind of left alone. The market does not harass them as much, and at least that's my impression. And this is a widely held company.
Yeah,
why is that?
Well, that's a very good question. I think we communicate a lot on what we're trying to do. I think that's a bit unique, even if we are in 40 countries and so. Information and priorities and goals are very well explained to everybody, and therefore I don't think there's that many questions, and there's no assumptions. We know where we're going, we know what we want to do, and usually when you do this, it avoids kind of scenarios that are not true or not real.
Well, Marc Charlebois, whatever happens with that 3D printer, do not teach the printer to make a TV host. Okay?
I'll stay away from that, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
You have my word.
Long life to you and to Mersen.
Thank you very much, sir. A pleasure.
Marc Charlebois, and now here's someone else coming up on the World Show.
You use the word liberalism, would have to define that, and then standard bearers, etc. I would say this, that the kind of thinking that my side of the political world is associated with generally is not doing well in this country at this time, nor is it doing particularly well in the rest of the world either. And I think that that is a kind of reaction. Speaking for my own country, we have had some 40 or 50 years of the notion that government ought to be positive, government ought to be aggressive about trying to help people. And the disposition of Americans is to be dissatisfied with the status quo almost always, and after 50 years they look around now at this, the most powerful nation in world history, with all respect to our good brothers and sisters in Canada, this surely is the most powerful nation the world has ever seen, but it's not enough for Americans. There are low and moderate skilled middle-class people being squeezed out by the global economy. There's terrible social catastrophes in some parts of our people, and there is a disconcerting lack of anything big to believe in. There is no hero, no heroine, no great cause, no great orthodoxy, nothing uplifting. There hasn't been since the Second World War. Now that kind of, to use the Carter word, malaise, infects the people. They look around, they say, hey, look, we're powerful. Why aren't we perfect? And then they consider that, well, for 50 years we've tried it this way, this positive, constructive government way. Let's try it without government. You see, it's a pendulum. We swing to a certain level, and then this force of gravity takes over and pushes us back. Now we're on the way back. This, incidentally, is also, I think, a sign of our immaturity. You have to remember this, Bob, about the United States of America, and I certainly won't speak for Canada. We're 16-year-old kid with the biggest muscles in the neighborhood. We can handle anybody in this neighborhood. There's no 30-year-old that can take us on. But we're 16, and we're still immature about a lot of things, about violence, about drugs, about sex, and frankly, we're immature about our expectations.
Marc Charlebois was our guest this week on Entrepreneurs, the Dobson series of the World Show. I'm Bob Scully. Have a great week. Thanks.